is a legend of the Vikings, a name that strikes terror throughout Europe. Yet, at this moment, Ragnar is about to endure a gruesome death. Ragnar, who was just recently locked up in a dog cage, was escorted by over 100 English soldiers to the kingdom of Northumbria in England. For such a Viking leader, who once slaughtered thousands, even his breath could make those around him shudder with fear. Even during rest at night, the English soldiers formed several circles, not daring to show the slightest slackness. Out of curiosity, a soldier wanted to touch Ragnar to see what set him apart from ordinary people. In the end, Ragnar didn't kill the soldiers. He knew that his journey to meet his fate held great significance, so he did not want to complicate matters and die halfway there. After 2 days of hard travel, Ragnar was finally brought to the kingdom of Northumbria. King El couldn't wait to meet Ragnar outside the city. He had been waiting for this moment for too long. More than 20 years ago, when Ragnar first led the Vikings to pillage his kingdom, El swore to God that he would take apart Ragnar to cleanse his shame. Now his wish was about to come true.
And I swear, before you die, you will atone for your sins against my countrymen.
After saying this, El ordered Ragnar, in his cage, to be lifted into the air, and the soldiers continued to poke at Ragnar under the cage with their spears. El, feeling unsatisfied, also commanded his men to roast Ragnar. From afar, one could even hear the sizzling sound of flesh burning. Thus, Ragnar was tortured by hundreds of people for a whole day and night. When El felt he had tortured Ragnar enough, he prepared to kill Ragnar to placate the souls of the tens of thousands of innocent people slaughtered by the Vikings. Before the execution, the soldiers gave Ragnar another brutal beating. Faced with such torture, Ragnar didn't make a sound, which greatly annoyed King El. He wanted to hear Ragnar's pleas to vent his anger. So, El subjected Ragnar to even more cruel abuses. Facing such a resilient enemy, King El showed an incredible expression. He pulled out his dagger and carved a deep cross on Ragnar's forehead. How the little piggies will grunt when they hear how the old boar suffered. But obviously, with El's intelligence, he could hardly understand the meaning of this sentence. Ragnar walked back to the cage, waiting for death, and scenes from the past began to flash back in his mind. With Ragnar's growing desire for glory and land, his life began to fall apart, ending up in a state of family discord and estrangement. But even if he had another 100 lifetimes, Ragnar would never regret his decision, because the Viking soul is deeply ingrained in his bones. Dying in battle for honor was the faith he clung to throughout his life. Ragnar was awakened by the prayers of the English people, and among the crowd, he saw a familiar figure. Egbert, in disguise, had come a long way to be present. From his eyes, one could see a trace of regret at the end of such a legendary leader. The soldiers pulled open a large hole under the cage, and amid the mournful singing, a large number of poisonous snakes were released into the pit. Ragnar shouts the last words of his life with emotion.
It gladdens me to know that Odin prepares for a feast. Soon I shall be drinking ale from curved horns. This hero that comes into Valhalla does not lament his death. I shall not enter Odin's hall with fear. There, I shall wait for my sons to join me. And when they do, I will bask in their tales of triumph.
Calmly facing death with no trace of fear, Ragnar believed that his death would ignite the fury of his sons' revenge, make them more united, and their accomplishments would far exceed his own. Ragnar fell into the snake pit. The snakes bit and tore at his body, but he never let out a cry. Looking at Ragnar's death, King El revealed a triumphant smile. But what I didn't realize was that Ragnar's sons were about to lead the Vikings in a total onslaught, and the flames of war would burn every inch of England's land. What awaits El is the Vikings' most cruel revenge punishment, the Blood Eagle. Ragnar is dead, were the most heartbreaking words Lagertha has heard in her life. But without seeing her ex-husband's body, Lagertha could never believe any rumors.
I am sorry. Forgive me, but if he is dead...
If Ragnar is truly dead, Lagertha has decided to take on the responsibility of ruling the entire Kattegat Strait and even the whole country. The next day, Lagertha, as the queen, held a meeting in the hall. She didn't know what Ragnar's fate was and whether he would come back. But during the days without Ragnar, Lagertha decided to build city walls and fortifications to fend off invaders. After all, Kattegat is now the most prosperous place in Norway with the largest trade volume. Many people must covet its wealth and land.
Those who share my belief, say aye.
Ivar crawled over, holding his iron club. His eyes were filled with a murderous aura. It looks like Ivar, who just returned to Kattegat, has learned of his mother Aslog's murder by Lagertha.
I want revenge. I challenge you to single combat.
The crowd was stunned by Ivar's words. No one could expect a lame to challenge the first shield maiden of the Vikings. However, Lagertha resolutely rejected his challenge.
I refuse.
You can't refuse.
I refuse to fight you, Ivar Lothbrok, son of Ragnar. I don't want to kill you.
Who says you would kill me?
I do.
I don't care, just as long as you know that one day I will kill you, Lagertha. Your fate is fixed.
Lagertha knows all too well that Ivar won't let it go. In the days that followed, Lagertha led her people to build forts and trenches. Every day she would look into the distance, hoping that one day Ragnar could come back, but she never saw the figure that had flashed through her mind millions of times. One night, Lagertha suddenly woke up from her sleep, and in a daze, she finally saw Ragnar, whom she'd been missing, but when she reached out to touch him, she realized it was all an illusion. The lovesick Lagertha found the seer. She wanted to know if Ragnar was still in this world. The seer told her that Ragnar was on his way to Valhalla, which meant Ragnar had indeed fallen. Lagertha composed her emotions and asked the last question.
Will I be killed by a son of Ragnar?
Yes.
Meanwhile, Bjorn, who was exploring the Mediterranean, just sailed into a foggy area, and the sunstone was of no use. Judging by their wild appearance, they seemed to have been stuck at sea for a long time. Fortunately, after a period of sailing, they finally saw the long-lost land. Although they didn't know where they were, they decided to find a port and pillage some supplies since their food and fresh water had run out. This was the port of Alhucemas, Spain. People were selecting goods at the night market, a bustling scene, but they were completely unaware that the Vikings had quietly landed and stormed into the city. When the figure of the pirates appeared, when the crowd immediately fled in fear, but the Vikings do not care about that. They see a man on a knife to kill, see the woman on the spot to rape and kill. After their purchase, they didn't forget to take a group of beautiful women back to the ship to enjoy. They continued on their way to the Roman Empire. As they left Spain, everyone looked down the Straits of Gibraltar. Bjorn, full of emotions, finally made it to the Mediterranean. His journey was further than that of any of his tribespeople, surpassing even his father Ragnar's achievements. But at that moment, the call of Odin's crows could be heard in the distance.
Other little piggies will grunt when they hear the old pole sound.
Fitzek, did you hear him too? Yes.
At the same time, a man in black stepped onto the ferry of Kattegat, exuding an incredibly powerful aura. It must have been Odin himself who came to convey the news of Ragnar's death.
Your father is dead. Killed by serpents. Cold. In the cold iron earth, Ragnar lies.
Ragnar's 5 sons received the news of their father's death one after the other. On the spot, Bjorn decided to return. Rome wasn't important anymore. Avenging his father was the most pressing matter. Soon, their fleet reached the coast of Francia. Rollo also wanted to take vengeance for his brother, but the Vikings would never accept him again. When parting with everyone, Rollo invited anyone willing to stay to live in Normandy. However, even though the living conditions in Paris were miles better than in Kattegat, not a single person entertained the thought. In the hearts of the Vikings, once a traitor, always a public enemy of the Vikings.
You should have killed him when you had the chance. Why would you say that? Because I have a bad feeling that he will reach more fame than any of you.
The three sons at home were not idle either. They decided to form the largest Viking army in the history of the Vikings in the name of Ragnar and Odin, and declared war on England and even the world. This is the most massive army in the history of the Vikings. They assembled nearly all the fighting Viking warriors in the north in the name of Ragnar. Like a towering wave, they rushed towards the English army. King El could never imagine that killing just one Viking leader could bring about the destruction of his entire country. And what awaits El is a form of torture far more horrifying than being drawn and quartered the blood eagle. Not long ago, Ivar spread the news of his father Ragnar's death, and countless Vikings rushed to Kattegat. They stated that Ragnar is the totem of the Vikings, the father of every Viking. Now that their father has been killed, all Vikings should rise up and seek revenge. At the same time, Ivar and Ub were carrying out their plan. In addition to avenging Ragnar, Ivar also wanted to kill Lagertha before the army set off, to avenge his mother. At this time, Lagertha was unknowing. She was still holding a feast in her territory to welcome everyone, but in the middle of the feast, the guards at the door were suddenly controlled, and then the doors were closed one after another. Before they could react, the shield maidens in the room were also controlled. After everything was ready, Ub and Ivar also stepped out of the crowd. Lagertha instantly understood everything. She calmly stood up, took her weapon from the throne, and slowly walked towards the two brothers. Just when everyone was tense, the door was suddenly pushed open.
If you kill her, my brothers, you'll have to kill me too.
Maybe we should.
Shut up. She killed our mother.
I know. You want revenge. So would I. But more importantly, we have to avenge our father.
It turned out to be Bjorn returning from the Mediterranean. Bjorn's reputation among the people is the highest now. Ub does not want to be an enemy of Bjorn. After all, Bjorn is his elder brother who grew up with him. At Ub's urging, the brothers put their revenge plans on hold. Yet the crisis was not over. At the construction site in the middle of the night, the Harald brothers and a man were plotting a major event. Harald told Egil that he was about to join Ragnar's sons on an expedition to England. During this time, he wanted Egil to help him conquer Kattegat while the city's defenses were empty. Looking at the fortifications being built, Egil assures the brothers that he will find a weakness in the defenses and help Harald to unite Norway and become king of the Vikings. The next day, Ivar, who had failed to get his revenge, came to Floki, not only to visit him, but also to ask Floki to help him find a solution to his leg problem. As Bjorn's army returns, the conditions for heading to England are gradually maturing. Ivar, with disabled legs, does not want to crawl around on the battlefield. Hearing this, Floki instantly understood his meaning, and not long after, he built a chariot for Ivar. Seeing such a gift, Ivar was indescribably excited, so he tried it out on the spot. When the warhorse carried him galloping, Ivar couldn't help screaming loudly. After all, this was the first time in his life that he experienced the sense of galloping freely. There were more and more people coming to Kattegat at this time. The brothers had not expected so many people to respond to their call when spreading the news. Now that the revenge army is there, the next question is who will command the three armies. Ivar told Ub that he wanted to be the commander, because when he was accompanying his father in his final moments, Ragnar pointed him out and also saw that he could bring a bright future to the Vikings. However, Ub and other brothers all thought that Bjorn was the only choice for commander. After all, Bjorn had followed his father to fight in the south and north, and his practical experience was very rich. But now it's just a talk. And after the army was assembled, the brothers finally brought up this issue.
We are all equally Ragnar's sons, but we are not equal in battle. So I will take the lead. I will establish the battle plans, and I will give the orders. Do you understand that? But what do you know? What have you done? What battles have you won? And what battles have you lost? You don't want to listen, that is your choice. But I am the leader of this great army. Men! And you will obey me!
With leadership decided, the largest fleet the Vikings had ever assembled headed for England. Bjorn devised a strategic plan to pick the soft persimmons first, wipe out El, then find Egbert for revenge, and none of the two kings could escape. Soon, the news of the Vikings landing in Northumbria reached El, but he was not afraid at all. He thought it was just a few pagans and was not worthy of fear. Before he left, El boasted to his daughters that he was well prepared, and that he would give Ragnar's sons a special welcome. Then El left with his army of 100. He stood confidently on the hill, and when he saw the Vikings team, he instantly felt confident of victory, because the enemy seemed to only be 100 or so. However, the next second, the expression on El's face gradually became stiff. With Ivar's chariots sweeping through the front of the formation, the Viking army was officially lined up. Looking out, this force seemed to be tens of thousands, and El was scared to stand still. The strength of the two sides is simply incomparable. Now it is too late to run. With Bjorn's order, the Vikings surged like a tide against the English army. Without a doubt, Northumbria's army was completely annihilated. El was captured, and Ivar dragged El all the way to the sacred land where Ragnar died. Looking at Ragnar's ferocious sons, El realized what a terrible mistake he had made in killing Ragnar. Only when they opened the cold pit did they find that Ragnar's skeleton had long since disappeared. The sons' fury reached its peak instantly. At this point, El was even trying to buy back his own life with money.
Du mig sägst. Min fader har haft mig rätt och gold and silver. Napis på torsken.
Floki grabbed El, intending to show him what the cruelest punishment in the world looked like.
I've been told your god is a carpenter. And guess what? So am I.